All right, everyone, it looks like we've finally gotten through the entire list of people that needed a little bit of assistance. So we are finally ready to get underway. It is 3:05, just as I promised. So let us get ready to take a little bit of a journey, a little bit of a trip down the road so that we can discuss everything there is to discuss about the HomeStyle Renovation Lending Program, how we administer that program here at REMN Wholesale. So first, let's do some of the most important things. Well, not most important things, but some of the more customary things. You might as well get to hear a little bit about who I am. My name is Damon Richardson, and I am the renovation lending specialist here at REMN Wholesale. And you can consider me to basically be your renovation tour guide for this particular afternoon. We want to talk about the program here, what makes it actually work, the nuts and bolts to a degree of what goes into making a home style loan, and then, but most importantly, really, how do you recognize the opportunities in which you can use the program? And most certainly, how can you, in your particular slant from the business, how can you leverage it effectively to make a positive and most beneficial impact into your day-to-day business? Those are all of the most important particular aspects. And we certainly would be remiss if we didn't talk about any of those things. And let's begin this journey by talking about that opportunity. Let's begin it by really jumping out and talking about where we are as society and as a nation. It is no secret we have an inventory problem when it comes down to real estate. And renovation loans, unlike other mortgages, are not just a financial construct where we're selling numbers. This is our ability to make something tangible, something real, where we make actual changes, physical, visible changes to the subject property, to the borrower's home, right? I've recently looked at some things, and you know what we realized? Borrowers definitely are not buying the mortgage, they're buying the house. They want the home. And the renovation loan is all about improving the home and maximizing that home's potential to meet the borrower's needs. And the marketplace resoundingly is already aware of this. The days of you needing to sell making renovations to a customer are long gone. In fact, most of our home buying public is at home in renovation boot camp every weekend, watching every flipping and flopping home buying and restoration program known to man on HCTV all weekend long. So everybody has the stories of exactly what they want, what they would like to see. But unfortunately, the inventory situation that we have with home buying leaves us in a position where you either have one or two problems when you're shopping for a home. There's either not a home that you can afford that actually fits your taste, and all the homes that fit your budget are just way outside of your desirable scope of home properties and characteristics. The other problem is every home that you love, you go to put in an offer, and there are 8 offers in the minute the property is officially listed, and unless you put in a ridiculous over asking price offer, it just wasn't accepted. Those are two different tales, two different sides of the very same inventory problem. And it's an inventory problem that's not going to be cured in any other way. But let us take an alternative view to how to handle that problem. And what if we were able to take some of those undesirable homes, the ones that are just a little bit too cramped, too dated, too old, or too structurally obsolete even? What if we were able to help homeowners buy into those properties and take advantage of the discounted price and then create brand new equity by renovating those homes and bringing them up to current market standards, by making them modern, fresh, but most importantly, their own. And in doing so, they create equity for themselves. Instead of paying top dollar for someone else's renovation, they're going to create savings and equity moving forward within a home of their very, very own. Last year saw Americans spend more money on renovations than any other year. All right, so this is not something that we need to educate the market on. This is something that people are already doing as we speak right now. So how does the HomeStyle as a mortgage product help with this? How does this actually work? And it seems to be a relatively simple answer. If any of you were expecting this to be a little bit difficult, I hate to disappoint you. But the questions that we're going to answer today should all lead you down to one relative conclusion, and that's that home-style loans are beneficial, but most importantly, are reliable and a worthwhile asset to have in your quiver of mortgage arrows. So, what is a home-style loan? Simply put, it is a Fannie Mae, mortgage. We offer them here only as a fixed-rate product, but it's a Fannie Mae loan. It only closes one time. There's no conversion. There is no subsequent other closing. There's only one appraisal required. This is one loan that you're going to manage from the beginning. And once this loan closes, we are going to simultaneously fund enough money to either purchase the property and pay the seller, or if it's a refinance, pay off the existing liens on the property. And then we're also going to establish a repair escrow fund that REMN Wholesale will hold and administrate for the borrower to help pay for the actual renovations. All right? You, as a loan officer, you don't have to worry about any trailing liability for the property. All right? Whether you are a bank, a broker, or a credit union, for all of you, it remains the same. At the day of actual closing, your job in this transaction is actually over, and your borrower is secure with the mortgage that you've already selected for them, and everyone gets to move forward relatively easily. So how does this work with being able to close a mortgage and then also taking in all this additional money for making renovations to the property? Quite honestly, we have to basically come to an understanding of what the property is going to be worth once the renovations are made. Right? The entire name of the game here is to do renovations that are actually going to increase the property's value. All right, just like they talk about in all those flipping and flopping shows. You want to do value enhancing renovations. All right, so by doing this, we are going to be able to get a good picture of what the property is worth post-renovation. We actually do that with a normal appraisal. The appraisal is done subject to the renovation. So we just have to do a pretty decent job on documenting exactly what's happening to the subject property, and then the appraiser will take a look at the plans and the market and then determine what this property in that new condition would be worth on the market today. And then that's how we're able to come to being able to finance the actual renovations. All right? Now, I know many of you are thinking exactly what the third question on this slide says. That sounds complicated. How on earth can I get involved in this and actually expect some insane future time travel appraisal to help me do a loan today? To be honest with you, because of the prevalence of the 203K program, we've been doing this for so long that we've kind of gotten it down to a science. We absolutely understand exactly all the different facets and things that you need to see in the appraisal to make sure that the value actually works out. All right. In fact, we are so good at closing these loans, we don't look at them as being anything more spectacular than every other Fannie Mae 30-year fixed loan that comes through our doors. In fact, it is our goal to show you just how easy it is to become so regular at producing home-style loans that you will be able to close them in 35 days or less. Right? That's our overall challenge, and we are very, very good at it. I understand that many people in this audience are probably listening and thinking, I'm not that good at that, and you probably are not right now. But our special challenge for each and every single one of you is to coach you up and help you become just as good as we are, so that that is actually the case. And obviously, this renders the last question on this page to be a little bit obsolete, because it takes more than 90 days to close these. If you make all the mistakes and don't listen to our advice, absolutely, it can. The goal of you being here today is to take the first couple of steps on following our instructions so that you will be able to close these things quickly and effectively, so that it will be a reliable staple in your bag of tricks so that you can enhance your relationships with your real estate partners. Now let's get into an actual scenario. Let's actually start to have that nuts and bolts conversation. So we're going to begin with the problem. Our inventory problem. It's very much a common thing, all right? So you have clients, they always have a limitation on what they can spend. But unfortunately, finding a property that works for them within their budget is difficult when it comes down to, finding a home that they actually like in many cases. And this leads you back to the premise of, well, what can we buy the most, what is the most cost-effective thing that we can buy? And that's going to be some kind of distressed property, whether it was a foreclosure sale or whether it was a property that just hasn't been, the one property in the neighborhood that was just never updated. It's a property that is definitely lacking in some capacity, and it's going to be something that needs to be worked on in order for the borrowers to be able to happily move into it. Renovation loans give us a perfect way of working with these properties because the borrower in one fell swoop is going to have the ability to not only finance the purchase of the home, but also simultaneously finance the work being done to make the home livable and up to their standards. So this gives us a rather uncommon solution, all right? The reason why I use the word uncommon, we have to think about this differently. And in order to do so, we are going to be able to come up with a much better solution for our customers than we were able to do in the past. All right, so let's talk about the number one thing. How are we financing these repairs? We're going to finance the repairs at a commensurate level to what we're financing on the purchase. So if we're doing a 95% purchase, we're also financing 95% of the renovations. Conversely stated, if the borrower is putting 5% down on the purchase price, the borrower is also putting 5% down on the renovation. So let's just use round numbers. Let's say you're doing a $200,000 purchase. All right, the borrower's 5% down on that particular number is going to wind up being a good $10,000. The borrower's also doing a $100,000 renovation to that property. The borrower's down payment on that $100,000 renovation is also $5,000. So in total, this borrower is going to put down $15,000. And with this $15,000, they are going to get the mortgage to finance the 90% on the purchase, but they're also going to get the other $95,000 of the renovation money financed, all in one foul swoop at one closing table. Okay, it is a fantastic thing for the borrower. All right, so one of the ways to think about this product, in all honesty, is to take a look at the amount of money you're asking your borrowers to put down out of pocket, and then realizing that you are essentially getting every renovation for pennies on the dollar. You're spending 5 cents out of every dollar. And that is completely and totally unheard of. Your borrowers are literally going to be nothing but thankful and very happy. And with doing this, I want you to realize if you're taking a look at the average market where you're seeing a distressed property, if that market is, let's say, a $350,000 market, and this property is distressed and not living up to the potential of that market, it's not going to sell at $350,000. It's going to sell for considerably less. And let's say that property sells for only $265,000 because of its condition. Even if the borrower had to put $50,000 of work into that property to bring it up to market standards, they would have a mortgage right around the $300,000 mark on a property that's worth $350,000 after making the repairs. It is literally a situation where you are giving the borrower the chance to create equity on a purchase, as opposed to purchasing the home and then being at a very low equity proposition right off of the bat, which is what we've become accustomed to. That is our common situation. But again, we are talking about a very uncommon solution. And considering this is an uncommon solution, let's talk about some of the other benefits that you have with being able to create a new way of thinking and solve problems in a different way. Let's say you have a borrower that already owns a home and is only looking because their life is changing. We are having another child. We don't have another bedroom. We have to have relatives come live with us. That wasn't, in the plans when we obviously, purchased this property. Someone now has a disability, or even quite simply, if you just are at a new stage in your life and the starter home that you bought is no longer representative of the person that you are, but this neighborhood is still fantastic. There are a variety of reasons to shop for a home, but what if you were able to give your borrowers the ability to expand their current home, to take the place that's still perfect in terms of location, and now retrofit this home and redesign the spaces to meet the borrower's needs today or to suit their station in life of today? Doing so would save the borrower a literal almost ton of money in terms of the cost of construction to bring all these things in, as opposed to shopping for something brand new. For borrowers that are purchasing, let's face it, who would you rather have do the work? A property seller is looking to do the work for pennies on the dollar, or a contractor of your choosing where you get to custom design every aspect of what's going into the home to your own specifications? It is just one of those things that the more you look at it, the more you realize it is an elegant solution, even though it is fairly simple to bring into fruition. Now, in general, if you're talking about the Fannie Mae HomeStyle loan, I want you to realize there are striking parallels between this program and the FHA 203K. In fact, they were designed to be very good complements to each other. In fact, I have to give Fannie Mae a lot of credit for understanding some of the areas where the FHA 203K loan does not touch, and they designed the Fannie Mae HomeStyle as a product to actually come into those areas. All right. Now, both of the programs do work on owner-occupied homes 1 through 4 units. They just do that work differently. All right. But the Fannie Mae HomeStyle does some things that the 203K has never done. All right. And let's just rattle off some of those things. We're talking about being able to make very high-end exterior fixes to the home, like installing brand new pools and spas, or to install exterior kitchens, and in general to do all of the upscale, lavish landscaping or hardscaping that you would want to do to a property to enhance its curb appeal. All of these things, if they add value, are absolutely on the table for the HomeStyle, whereas for the 203K, these things would not. In terms of property types and borrower types, it's not just owner-occupies for the HomeStyle. The HomeStyle is also going to give you the ability to make renovations to secondary homes, as well as making renovations to single-family investment properties as well. So this opens up several new doors that you were not able to open with just the 203K alone. Now, when you're talking about the power of renovation, I want you to really remember that you're talking about the ability to completely remake a home in your borrower's own image. And we have done some fantastic rebuilds here, where borrowers have added on massive additions and nearly tripled the value of their homes. I mean, we have seen amazing, amazing things. It is not even possible, not even with a slide like this one, to tell you everything that you can do. I mean, the list goes on. And I have everything that I could think of here, between major structural additions all the way down to minor painting and flooring and replacement of windows. The easier thing to do to give you an understanding of what is and is not possible is really to talk about the things that you can't do. That's the easiest way to have this conversation. So let's realize our limitations on the program. All right. HomeStyle in general, while you can do kitchen remodels, you can only do appliances on a HomeStyle loan when you're doing a full kitchen remodel. You wouldn't be able to use a HomeStyle loan to not actually remodel the kitchen and just purchase new appliances. All right. If you're going to do appliances, you're going to have to actually do what constitutes as a full remodel on the actual kitchen. All right. The appliance thing is limited only to kitchen appliances. So this is not going to cover washers and dryers. All right, so that's something that we also cannot do with the HomeStyle program. All right, this is a limitation that the program has in common with the 203K, and that's a limitation is not having the ability to do any renovations that are for a commercial purpose. All right, we cannot do that. All right, and last but not least, HomeStyle does not allow for the construction of detached. All right, look at that word, it's important, detached accessory units. All right, we can't make anything above ground that is another structure without attaching it to the primary structure on the property. All right, now that doesn't mean they have to share a wall. They can be connected by a covered walkway, which is called a breezeway. All right, and that gets us around many of the normal construction problems when it comes down to building detached units, or at that point, semi-detached units. Now realize this, when it comes down to the breezeway thing, the breezeway is a covered walkway, and anything that we build on a HomeStyle loan that is detached from the main structure must be connected at least via breezeway if it does not share a wall. Now let's go into eligibility. All right, so let's talk about LTVs. I didn't really do that to the 90 Salt and Pepper Classic meter, but let's talk about the LTVs anyway. So on a HomeStyle loan, we can do owner occupied, 1 through 4 units, but LTV decreases as the number of units increases. So on an owner occupied single family, we can go to 95% LTV. If we're talking about a 2-unit owner occupied, we can do 85 LTV. 3 to 4 units is going to be limited to 75% LTV. These LTVs on owner occupied are both for purchase and refinance. All right, you can refinance with the same LTVs as a purchase for an owner occupied borrower. Second homes, limited to single family second homes. But we are able to go to a 90% LTV. All right, and again, that is purchase or refinance. Last but not least, let's talk about our last group, the investors. For the investors, we can go to a maximum LTV of 85% on a purchase. On a refinance, we are limited to 75%. Okay, and please remember, these are limited to single family investor only. All right, the last thing I want to see anyone try to do is a multifamily investor. You will be turned back every single time. Fannie Mae does not allow us to do that. And now, let us talk about some of the nuts and bolts of what goes into getting one of these loans done. So I'm sure everyone here is familiar with putting a loan through DU. Right? We've probably all done it about 10 billion times, and we can't even remember the last time it took any actual thought. You know what kind of loan is going to work. The great news about doing a home-style mortgage is that this is really going to be doing more of the same. All right, so you don't have to learn a brand new system of qualifications. Everything that you know about credit qualifying for a conventional mortgage is going to remain exactly the same. All right, so REMN Wholesale also does not put any overlays on top of DU. All right, so every single HomeStyle loan that we do definitely has to be a DU approved eligible loan. We don't do any manual turndowns or manual underwriting on conventional files at all. And by virtue of the loan having valid DU findings, we will not add any additional overlays or criteria on top of what's being required by DU. All right. Now, the big thing you have to remember is your package, your actual loan docs have to validate your DU findings. That is of supreme importance. Okay. Don't send us a package that doesn't match your findings at all. All right. One of the major bones of contention for renovation lending in general is whether or not a property in and of itself is eligible for the program. And to be honest with you, most properties that you'll find will be eligible as long as they meet certain criteria. All right. So 1 through 4 unit property for an owner occupant, definitely going to be eligible. All right. For secondary homes, limitations, 1 unit. Same goes for investment, limited to 1 unit. All right. What these properties all must have to maintain their eligibility, though, is a valid certificate of occupancy, or for short, a CO. All right. There is no way around this. Now, unlike the FHA 203K, where the CO has to be at least 12 months old, for a HomeStyle loan, Fannie Mae will work with the CO that was granted yesterday. Okay, but the property has to have one. All right. If your property does not have any valid CO, it will be immediately ineligible. All right, so that by default means new construction without a CO is not going to work. A property where there's only land and there is no property whatsoever, there's no actual structure, there's no CO there, not going to work. A property that was condemned, also not going to work. All right, some other examples of things that are going to be outside of the scope of what we can touch with a HomeStyle loan: commercial properties, properties that are unique, such as churches and lighthouses, things of that nature. And last but not least, I'm going to call this as a working farm or a ranch. And there's a difference between a farmhouse or a ranch house. and a working farm or ranch house. And that difference is the person living in it. If the person buying the property is a farmer and intends to farm the land commercially, we're not going to be able to do a renovation loan on that particular property. But if it's a civilian that just wants to live in the country and has no intentions of farming the land, that is a much, much, much different story. So now, sorry, it was taking a moment there to actually get the slide to change over to the next one. So let's talk about all the parties involved in doing your loan. The first party is definitely the borrower. Okay, we all work with the borrower in one of these scenarios. We're here to make sure that the borrower is wrapped in a little bit of value. But your cohort in this loan, to much the same degree as the borrower, is going to be your real estate agents on a purchase. All right, these are going to be the people on the ground actually selling the physical renovations to the client. All right, bringing you that business. So they are hugely, hugely important. They need to understand what's actually going on here. From the real estate agent perspective, there isn't really a lot to do that's any different. They're not going to write the contract any differently than what they are right now. The seller doesn't have any extra liabilities on the renovations, and all the renovations take place after the new buyer takes ownership of the property. So from the real estate agent's perspective, this is largely much the same, and all the extra work that's involved to make this thing close on time is really on you as the loan officer. All right, so make sure that your real estate agents understand that, because in many cases, they don't understand these programs or the requirement of work or effort out of them. They typically don't get it. And it's really up to all of us to make sure that they do understand it as their partners in real estate. All right. The necessary evil, the contractor. That's the next most important person in this entire scenario. This is the person bringing your borrower's vision to life. And your borrower and the contractor need to be on the same page, which is the reason why we do not dictate as a lender who the borrower wants to hire as the contractor. We don't make them subscribe to any pre-conformed list that we have. The borrower has the ability to come in with any contractor they would like, and there's a simple vetting process that we go through. So the contractor is going to have to fill out some disclosures. On a home style loan, it's really 6 disclosures, and they're going to have to fill out a questionnaire about their business and submit that back to us with their licensing and insurance information. We're actually able to approve about 90% of the contractors that come through the door. All right? They just need to be able to do the modicum amount of work in paperwork that we need them to do, and then give us decent amount of detail on their work description, and more than likely it's going to be okay. All right. This is an important note for anyone that's working with a potential investor. We do not allow the borrower to ever be the general contractor on their own job. It's just not going to happen. All right. There are many, many, many bad reasons around that. All right. So I don't want to get into all of it right here on the webinar, but believe me, we have looked at every possible scenario and we have thought about it many, many times over. In general, it's just a bad idea. So for any of you that have the questions, hey, can my contractor borrower work on the property? The answer for the most part is no. All right, there are very limited situations where we'll let a borrower contractor be involved in the project, but it's always a management exception. It's pretty difficult to get intentionally because of the severity of how bad of an idea it actually is. All right. Now, the last party involved, and the reason why I have them separated on the last page is because they are the least understood in this entire process, is the consultant, or I should call them by their proper name, the 203K consultant. Yes, I said 203K. Okay, stop the press. It's a home style loan, but we still use 203K consultant. We still do. The reason why we do, we've done so many 203Ks over the years that we are very comfortable with their format and style of reports. In fact, there is a very large user base of consultants out there that are in just about every market across the country. So it is very easy for us to pick up their reports and just kind of fold them into the process wherever they are. Now, we use these consultants on any home style loan where we have more than $15,000 of work being done. The reason for this is that Fannie Mae actually has a different philosophy on paying contractors. Fannie Mae did not create a limited or streamlined version of the home style. Right? So since they did not create one, that means that our rules for paying a contractor are all exactly the same as what you would normally expect to follow on a standard 203K. All right, there's no upfront money ever given, not at all. So if you have a contractor doing a pretty small job, let's say it was an $18,000, roof, flooring, and some windows type of job on a property, I don't think he wants to wait to be finished with everything before he's paid. So we use consultants on anything over $15,000 so that there at least can be one draw during the job so the contractor can take in some of the money for the work that's already been done. All right, that's very important. Now let's talk about this consultant and what they do. Obviously, they're involved in the draw process. That's why I just mentioned why we use them over 15,000. But they do a lot of incredible things for your borrower. The first is making sure that the bids are accurate and well detailed. In fact, the consultant's write-up is so good, we don't even use the bid once we have the consultant's write-up back. We ask that the contractor sign off on the actual consultant's write-up, and this way we're clear of ever needing to ask this contractor to update a bid to match the consultant's report ever again. That's how we've solved that one particular problem, all right? But they also verify the pricing on the bid to make sure that it's feasible to get all the work done so that the borrower isn't going to run out of money and then subsequently be asked for more money throughout the process. It's important to do this because we can't reopen these loans to fund more money once the loan's actually closed and we're inside of the renovation period. We need to get the budget right the first time. This is an important step to make sure that that actually happens. Next, the consultant does a physical inspection of the property. These consultants typically are either home builders or architects on their own right. They certainly understand building code and construction terminology, so they're going to be very well versed in making sure that they've picked up all the subtle little things that may also need to be included in the job. And because of their work with the 203K program, they're very, very keyed in on the bank, on anything that would be considered a bank required repair that needs to happen to the property. So because of that level of expertise, they are a fantastic second set of eyes to handle the entire project, just to make sure that nothing is left out into the cracks. Now, this consultant is another person that the borrower does hire, and they are the official go-between between the borrower and the contractor. So what that really means for all of us, for you loan officers out there and myself, this is the person that the borrower will have to lean on as their personal, Jonathan and Drew in their own renovation. All right, this gives them that one person that will speak to them in plain English, that understands what's happening with the contractors, but can relate to them in plain English everything that's actually happening, which saves all of us a lot of time. And it also helps ease frustrations between borrower and contractor. They are a great addition to the actual process, and they will honestly save you a lot of time and frustration. Believe me, all right? So let's talk about the steps of actually putting your loan together. It's a good place to go at this point. Now that we know all the parties, let's talk about how they, interject. First and foremost, you're going to do what you always do. You're going to qualify your borrower, all right? But let's say your borrower's coming in looking at a property that needs a lot of work, and they're purchasing at $250,000. If this borrower tells you, "Hey, I'm purchasing this property at $250,000, and talking to the real estate agent, we think it's going to need about $65,000 worth of work," obviously you're not going to qualify that borrower at just a $250,000 purchase. You're going to need to qualify them to see if they can afford the other $65,000 worth of work. So you're going to qualify that particular person $315,000. So get your borrower qualified. Make sure they can actually afford the level of indebtedness that we are all proposing here. All right. And you're going to begin to assemble your credit package. As you're assembling your credit package, you need your borrower to go from guessing at that $65,000 renovation to knowing what these renovations are going to cost. So they need to get in contact with an actual contractor to go out to the property and have a formalized bid made. All right, depending upon the amount of work. If it's over $15,000, that's also going to necessitate the use of one of those 203K consultants. You're going to have to also hire the consultant, get the consultant on the job, get the consultant's report done. All right, while you're waiting on getting that consultant's report back, it's a great time to start, sending those 6 disclosures over to your contractor to make sure that they take care of all 6 of the disclosures, get those things ready. All right, now at this point, we are really ready because you have all of your information kind of assembled. We will have already done at least one mocked up maximum mortgage worksheet as you were speculating all the numbers. However, now We have a consultant's report. We have all of our docs back. Now we can start putting in final numbers into that maximum mortgage worksheet. So we can tailor your final draft of the application, get your loan submitted at that point, and order your appraisal, because that consultant's report is what goes inside. Once we do these things, you've set yourself up to receive within 24 hours your actual loan approval from us. That loan approval is going to have all of your relevant renovation and contractor conditions on the upfront approval, so that you have to do nothing more than the process of clearing and closing a loan. That's our way of making sure that you can try to get this process down to 35 days or less. We want to simplify it to you clearing a conventional loan just the way you've cleared conventional loans literally hundreds, if not thousands of times before. All right, now post-closing is where we really shine. If there's anything that we're good at, it is the post-closing process. So post-closing, let's talk about what happens. This loan is going to get CTC'd. Once you get your CTC, my renovation concierge desk will call your borrower. We call them lovingly the RCD. They're going to call the borrower to let them know what to expect after the closing date. So they're going to, tell the borrower who their actual draw specialist is. That's going to be the one person here behind the scenes that takes care of them from that point on. That's going to be the person that is handling all of their draw paperwork, sending out all the checks, and making sure that everything is okay. If they have any issues, problems, or concerns, that is exactly the person they need to speak to. You notice they have a point of contact, which is not you. So you are free to not need to worry about what's going on with the Johnson family bathroom. You can move on to your next client while we will take care of this one from beginning to end. And this is a person that definitely works here, not someone that is, a third-party associate. We actually completely staff and manage our own renovation concierge desk with our own people. All right, so this is one of the things that separates the men from the boys in renovation. And we are certainly leading the crowd in terms of that men side of things. All right, so they will find out who their draw specialist is. They will get a phone number to contact the renovation concierge desk and an email address to send in all actual correspondence. All right, the loan will go to closing and settlement just like every other loan you've ever worked on. Seller gets paid, you get paid, all the fees and costs and everything get paid. The borrower puts in their down payment, and then the entire amount of money for the actual renovation escrow will be collected by the settlement agent and sent back to us. All right, during this time frame, it takes about 10 days for us to receive the funds back, depending upon the settlement agent and where they are in the country. Once we've received the money back, the contractor can then start working and submitting draw requests. Now, the way draw requests work, we do not give the contractor a schedule of when he can make draw requests. The contractor needs to be free to make those on his own. We let the contractor act as their own project manager, so this way they can get a good way to determine how much work has approximately been done, so they have an idea of how much money is coming to them on each individual draw. All right, so contractors will ask the consultant to come in for the inspection. The consultant will verify that it's okay with the borrower. The consultant shows up, gives a detailed report of what's been finished, and that report is, it will be reviewed by both parties. They tend to make sure everybody's on the same page, and then sent back to us. It takes REMN Wholesale 24 to 48 hours to actually go through the report. At the end of that processing time frame, check request goes into accounting. Accounting cuts the check, mails the check out via 2-day air, and it goes to the borrower's residence. Right? It's a two-party check. That check is signed off on by the homeowner, by the borrower, and handed over to the contractor. This check comes from our escrow account. All right, so it's a highly actionable check, and the contractor will be able to make great use of the funds nearly immediately. It is a system that works very, very, very well. All right, the borrower needs to do change orders, or if they come across any unforeseen or unexpected problems, this system is designed to take care of it. They only need to make a call in or send an email to their draw specialist, who will then give them instructions on everything that needs to be done, whether it would be something as simple as switching part of the job based on something that they've discovered inside of the property, or at the end, let's say if we haven't used any of the emergency money. If the contingency has gone unused and they want to do change orders to just add on more work, the draw specialist is the person that they would send all information to regarding any of those things to make sure that all of it happens relatively easily. All right. So to sum all of that up, again, at closing, you get paid. That is a great thing. All right. The contractor is not allowed to start working until the loan is actually closed. All right. So that has to happen first. All right. We must close before the contractor can start working. In order to understand where we are, the initial window for the completion of the project is 6 months from the date of closing. So they have 6 months to actually get everything closed. On HomeStyle loans, there is never, ever, ever an upfront draw to the contractor, okay? Not for any particular reason. Only recently has Fannie Mae even opened things up to allow us to give deposits to actual suppliers of custom-made material. But again, that's a payment that we can only send to an actual supplier of the material. We cannot pass that money to the contractor to pay for us. We would have to actually send the check directly to the person that made the cabinet. We couldn't send that money to the contractor to have them pay the person on their own behalf. All right, so that's the way that that has to work. And another fun fact, if the borrower wants to live in the property during the renovation and they wants to live through the dirt and grime of a reno, they absolutely will be allowed to, as long as the property has not been deemed unsafe for habitation. If the property is uninhabitable, the consultant will let the borrower know that in the report, but also give the borrower the ability to finance a corresponding number of months of full payday payments for the time frame that the property will be uninhabitable. Now, for all those reasons, you should see that renovation lending isn't as scary as you initially thought. It is actually very useful, and you know what? Us REMN people, we're pretty good at it. All right, we have a lot of different protocols and things in place, protocols, I should say, and things in place to make us, if not the best, then one of the best. But I'm telling you, I've been around the best experience in terms of being able to close these things in a realistic and reliable fashion. All right, for any of you that don't have AEs with us or don't have the ability to submit loans to us at the moment, please reach out. Let us know. We will get an AE in contact with you immediately so that you can begin your journey with us. And certainly, if there's anything that we didn't cover in great detail, we do a good job of doing individualized training with one-on-one sessions for all of our accounts. So if you actually wanted to kind of drill down and go a lot deeper on certain topics, we absolutely would be able to do so on a one-on-one session. By all means, reach out to us directly and we will get that set up with you, so this way we can make all of you absolute rock star pro legends at renovation, just like we are ourselves. So at this point, I want to thank each and every single one of you for sitting through this presentation with me today. It was an absolute pleasure to sit here in front of you, and I absolutely enjoyed it. At this point, I like to end all of these sessions with as much of a question and answer session as I can possibly fit in. So I'm going to take a look through some of the questions that were submitted in the question pane. And if I did not cover the topics, I'll announce the question and then actually give it a live answer right here inside of the session itself. So let's go and take a streaming look back. Bit of a ways to scroll up. Let's see. Now, the first question that I'm going to address here is my favorite. It comes up every single time, whether or not everyone here in attendance will get a copy of the actual slide presentation. The answer is yes. I will make sure that everyone does get a copy of the slide presentation. In fact, my marketing department will reach out once we've actually added this recorded session to our YouTube channel, and everyone here that was in attendance will definitely get a copy of the slide presentation and a link to the video in our YouTube channel once that goes up. All right, so that is the first thing I wanted to address. Ooh, let's see, we have a great question right off the bat. We have David, who has asked, does the program allow for down payment assistance programs? And absolutely, yes, down payment assistance programs are absolutely usable for the HomeStyle product, all right? It does have to meet the requirements of a true community second, all right? We will take a look at your documentation, but as long as you're actually able to document it well, and we find that it meets the criteria for a true community second, you know, that whole good thing with, you know, giving them the actual down payment without requiring any kind of payment, as long as all the paperwork adds up and amounts to that, I'm sure it would actually work, all right? But it has to actually be recorded as a mortgage, and that mortgage has, you know, cannot have any repayment terms, all right? So it is important that it truly meets the criteria of a true community second, but if it does, it should work. Jennifer Edwards has a great comment in there just talking about the additional money that's required by the borrower. I don't think in the home style that we're trying to say that a borrower gets renovations for free. All right. So in the example that I gave, you know, the borrower had to bring an additional $5,000 to the closing table for the renovations. All right. Now let's talk about the reality of the situation. If the borrower just bought that house, let's say, you know, at 250,000, if the borrower bought that house, and I believe, did I say 250 or 200? I believe I said 200,000. If the borrower bought that house and they put their 5% down, which is $10,000, so they had a mortgage for 190, they put in their 10. If the house was not very well livable, unless they spent another 100,000, they would have to then, out of their pocket, spend $100,000 on the renovation. Out of their own pocket. Using the home style, they spend $5,000 out of pocket, borrowing the other $95,000. So in general, they have saved out of their own pocket $95,000. There's no way of saying that the renovation work in and of itself is ever free, and we would not ever allude to that. However, if you are renovating the property, that money has to either be spent out of your pocket or you're going to borrow it from somewhere. We're saying, why spend $100,000 from your own bank account when you can only spend $5,000? All right, that's the general gist of what we're saying here. All right, so I know that wasn't much of a question, it was more of a comment, but I just wanted to address it all the same. I'm sorry for that, everybody, but let's see what the next question is. All right, so Kenny's asked the question, and the question essentially is, if a structure is a garage and not something with living space, does it need to be connected even if it's recessed and toward the back of the property? And the answer is, if it's above ground and it's a structure, it has to be connected. So if it's recessed to the back of the property, we would still have to connect it to a breezeway. With the 203K, you can build a detached garage. With the home style, you cannot. You have to connect everything you build that's above ground to the property one way or another. And the breezeway is the most sensible way to make that happen. All right, our next question is from Gregor, who's asking, do we have MI allowing 85% on an investor purchase? All of our MI providers are fully participating with with our HomeStyle product. So we don't have an issue providing MI at any level. Right now, due to pricing hits, our max rate that we carry is about 5.25. We don't have pricing that actually makes the 85% investor purchase work. All right, so the highest that we can really get to relatively easily is 80%. All right, so that's kind of the case at the moment because of pricing. But if we did not have the pricing issue, we would be able to make the 85% on the MI work as well. All of our MI providers are fully participating. Let's see, our next question. All right, so our next question comes from Trina, and she's asking, if the property currently has a detached garage, can we convert it to an accessory dwelling unit without adding a breezeway? No, we would have to add the breezeway. The money that we're putting into the detached structure to make it an above ground living space would necessitate the use of a breezeway. Otherwise, we couldn't finance it. All right, so we would have to put that breezeway in. The breezeway is really our gateway of saying it. Before we figured out the breezeway angle, the answer to that question was just no, we couldn't even build that. So we would still need to add the breezeway anytime we have an above ground structure that we're putting money into, especially if we're converting it to living space. All right, let's see, our next question. Nathan has asked us, or Nathaniel, I should say, do we stop at conventional loan limits, or are we able to do high balance? The answer is yes. We can do loans up to the high balance. There are no change in LTVs for high balance. It all works exactly the same. All right. He's also asked another question. If a property was constructed prior to the actual need of a CO, is that a problem? And the answer to that question is maybe. Just because the property was constructed prior to having having a requirement for a CO, it could not be legally inhabited now without a CO. You can't grandfather in the ability to not have a CO. All right. If somehow, some way, we found a place in the United States that does allow this to happen, we would need to have a CO prior to being able to renovate that particular property with a home style. All right. COs are literally for legal habitation. There's really not a place I can think of in the country that allows habitation of any residential structure without a certificate of occupancy. All right, we have another question from Brandon. And Brandon has just said sometimes the CO is recorded. What if the borrower doesn't actually have it? The CO isn't something that the borrower is going to actually physically have on their possession in most cases. This is actually something that's recorded by the municipal authority, whether that be the city or the county. All right, so it's not something that the borrower typically has. If the property is actually occupiable, you'll be able to verify that from the county where the property sits. Let's see, we have a couple minutes before I have to give up the webinar channel. Let's see if we can get in as many of these as we possibly can. Okay, so let's see, Cheryl's asking if the contractor's bid is given to the consultant for review, or the consultant specifications and repairs are given to the contractor to complete the estimate. The way that you can do this either way. The way that makes the most sense to me is to have the contractor at the property first to come up with the bid, and then to have that bid re-verified by the consultant. You can do it the other way, and I've seen many people prefer to do it that way, but my personal way that I would say is the most beneficial to the borrower is to have the contractor out first and then to have the consultant review second. But if you would like, you can always hire the consultant first and then have the contractor create a bid based off of the consultant's work write-up. All right, but it's really a matter of preference. All right, let's see if we can get another one in here. Let's try to squeeze in as many as we can. That's also about the presentation. Okay, Ruth has asked a question about vetting the actual consultants prior to. To be honest with you, if you've ever had a negative experience with the consultant, they have an ID for HUD just like underwriters do, and we could absolutely complain to the moon about them. All right, so whenever we find a bad one, we typically report it to make sure that we can, avoid any further borrowers being, subjected to their unprofessional or disappearing acts. So make sure if you come across a bad one, to please, call your HOC. We can have these people completely reported, so this way they will be removed and eliminated from the consultant pool. All right. Jeff's asked the question, what's our max loan amount? Max loan amount is going to be the high balance loan amount in the county where the property resides. All right, so whatever the high balance max loan limit is, if it's a high balance place. Otherwise, if it's not a high balance county, then you would go by the conventional loan limit. All right, Brenda's asked the question. This is a good one. Extra fees on the LE. The extra fees on your LE are going to be the third-party fees. All right, that's going to be largely constructed by your maximum mortgage worksheet. So that is something that we will work on with you one-on-one. All right, because each MMW is different, and the third-party fees literally go by exactly what's listed on the MMW, and we do an expert job of either creating the LE for you or showing you exactly what needs to be on your own LE if you want to generate it yourself based upon what you've completed in your maximum mortgage worksheet. All right, we have a question from Brian that says, what licenses do contractors need? Contractor licenses are depending upon the state for the state where the subject property is. So the state determines whether or not a contractor needs a general contracting license. So if the GC licenses are required in that state, then the contractor would need to have a GC's license. But in general, in every single state in the union, if your job includes the master trades or the specialty trades, which are plumbing, electrical, or HVAC, then licenses particular for those three things would have to be subjected as well. Let's see. James has asked the question, had a potential seller use these products? Absolutely they could. If it's an owner-occupied property, the seller might have a chance of being able to try to do a refinance as an owner-occupant. But if they have the property on the market, it's probably their best bet to do it as an investor. This way we understand when the property sells immediately after the work being done, and we won't have any reason to feel that we were, deceived, right? But they would be able to do it as an investor refinance. All right, Michael, you've asked a question about our, what we've made up and called our own streamlined process if we have less than $45,000 worth of work on a property. That's if you have multiple contractors comprising of that $45,000 worth of work, where we try to say where if each of them is doing about $15,000 worth of work on their own, which we say 3 contractors, 45,000 is kind of a perfect number, then we can still relatively easily pay each of them without having to have a consultant because we pay them once they're complete with their own individual work. That is something that is a little bit more tricky to kind of work out. So it would probably be best if we discuss that on like a one-on-one scenario. So if you have questions about that, definitely reach out to me and we will be able to discuss those things in greater detail. All right. Ruth has asked, and this is going to have to be our last one. Ruth has asked the question, can we explain the caveat regarding kitchen appliances? All right, so to explain that one more time, this is just for you, Ruth. If you are doing a full kitchen renovation, we will be able to include kitchen appliances inside of that home style loan. All right, the caveat is if you are not doing a full renovation, we would not be able to do any appliances in the kitchen. So if the bid just says install new range and dishwasher, we wouldn't be able to do it without actually having other renovation work happening inside of that kitchen. All right, we would have to be actually renovating the full kitchen in order to finance the cost of the appliances. All right, Ruth? So it is now 4:02. I definitely have to relinquish the webinar channel so that the next trainer here would be able to use it for the next thing on the schedule. I thank everyone for sitting through, especially all the way through to the Q&A. I appreciate all of you, and I certainly look forward to meeting you and working with you on your loans in the future. Thank you once again, and I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.